With less than 30 minutes left to go in the trading day, shares of Boeing holding on to gains, but off the best levels of the day. The troubled jet maker announcing CEO Dave Calhoun will step down at the end of the year. Search is now underway for a replacement. Let's bring in Ronald Epstein, Bank of America Securities Senior Aerospace and Defense Analyst. Ron, let's sort of move the conversation forward here. What are some names you're thinking about in terms of who needs to take the helm at this company, given where it is right now?
Well, they've said they're going to have a broad search, right? So the new chairman of the board is going to execute a search, most probably internally and externally. The candidate or candidates, they're going to need to have some specific skills. They're going to have to generate goodwill internally from employees. They're going to have to repair relationships with regulators, namely the FAA. They're going to have to repair relationships with the airlines, and they're going to have to repair relationships with the flying public. And they're also going to have to be an operating executor. So it's a big bill to fill. I'm certain there's some internal talent, but I'm certain they'll also look externally.
Do you think, Ron, listen, they're making some big changes in the C-suite here, but do you think there's kind of broader cultural changes that need to happen at Boeing as well?
Yeah, this is part of it, right? I mean, we've been writing for some time that Boeing's going to require a broader cultural change to improve execution, to put aircraft fabrication over, the time it takes to build airplanes, make that secondary to safety. I mean, that's been the issue, to flip that around, to make safety more important than the time it takes to build an airplane. And probably the most important thing that Boeing's going to have to do is think about what that next airplane is going to be. Dave Calhoun said earlier today in an interview that this next CEO is going to oversee the development of a new airplane that could cost upwards of $50 billion. We've been saying for some time that Boeing has to do a new airplane. And so this new CEO is not only going to have to fit the bill that I said before, but also have the engineering prowess and the strategy to understand how to develop a new product that could be in the markets for upwards of another 50 years, like the 737 before it.
Ron, that list you just ticked off about what needs to change at the company is a long one. This is not an overnight transition that we're looking at. With that said, is it time for investors to reset expectations for the company?
Well, I mean, the company, interestingly enough, we hosted a conference last week in London. It's the Bank of America Global Industrials Conference. And Boeing CFO Brian West spoke at that conference. And at that conference, he reset financial expectations. And at the conference, he mentioned that the company in the first quarter would burn through somewhere between $4 to $5 billion, have negative 20% earnings margins, EBIT margins in the commercial airplane business, and that the company would maybe get to $1 to $2 billion of cash flow for the year in aggregate, and the aircraft production would exit the year at maybe about 38 airplanes. That was a reset there. Investors need to think about financial targets and medium and longer term targets with a change in leadership regime. They tend to change targets too. I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that it was time for a change. Change is happening. It brings uncertainty. We'll see who the next leadership regime is, and they'll bring their view and their outlook and everything with them.
Ron, right now your rating is a neutral, so you're on the sidelines with this name. What do you need to see, Ron, before getting more bullish on Boeing?
Well, when you think about Boeing, there's really a tug of war between a very, very strong commercial aerospace market. If you look at demand for airplanes today, it's exceedingly strong. People are flying, air traffic's growing. However, that's offset by the uncertainty in production that Boeing's been confronted with, and particularly on the 737, a little bit on the 787. They're still having to certify a couple of the 737 models, and the 777X is still in development. So, there's a tug of war between the two. So good end market, lagging execution. I mean, obviously, if one can get a feel for better execution, maybe that could make one feel better about the stock. But right now, I don't think anything's going to change overnight. And we're very comfortable with our neutral rating, and we think the stock will be range bound.
Ron, thanks so much for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.